At 12:53 p.m. on August 23, 2006, an 18-year-old woman was vacuuming a car in a quiet Austrian garden. Then a phone rang. The man watching her stepped away because the vacuum was too loud. For the first time in years, the gate stood between her and freedom and no one was blocking it. She ran. Her name was Natascha Kampusch. The world had last seen her as a 10-year-old schoolgirl. By the time she reached a neighbor's house, she had been missing for 3,096 days. How could a child vanish on her way to school, remain hidden after police questioned the man who took her, and survive long enough to seize a single chance 8 years later? On Monday, March 2, 1998, Natascha left her family's apartment in Vienna's Donaustadt district and started walking to school. It was a familiar route through an ordinary residential neighborhood. She never arrived. By evening, her parents had contacted police. Soon, investigators received their most important early lead. A 12-year-old witness said she had seen a girl being pulled into a white delivery van. The witness also believed she had seen a second man inside. The white van became the center of one of Vienna's largest missing child searches. Police examined hundreds of similar vehicles, roughly 700, according to Austrian public broadcaster ORF. The witness account was unusually specific: a white van associated with the Ganserndorf district, the same district where Strashoff was located. Detectives had a vehicle description, a geographic clue, and a narrow morning timeline. But searching hundreds of owners created its own problem. Each conversation became a quick decision about who looked suspicious and who did not. A calm answer could move one name down the list before the underlying story had truly been tested. One of those vans belonged to a communications technician named Wolfgang Priklopil. On April 6, barely 5 weeks after Natascha disappeared, investigators visited him at his home in Strashoff, a town outside Vienna. Priklopil said he used the van for construction work on his property. He had no criminal record, appeared cooperative, and did not match the image officers expected of a child abductor. They moved on. The house was not thoroughly searched. Beneath its garage, Natascha was still alive. The room prepared for her was hidden below a vehicle inspection pit. It had no windows. A concealed entrance, heavy soundproof barrier, and steel door separated it from the ordinary house above. The space was only about 5 square meters, smaller than many household bathrooms. Reaching it required passing through layers of concealment. The entrance was not an obvious basement door that a visitor might open by accident. It was integrated into the garage and disguised behind the working spaces of the property. Light and ventilation depended on equipment controlled from above. The construction explains how the room remained invisible to neighbors. It does not explain why the owner of the matching van was cleared without investigators discovering what he had built. To anyone passing outside, the property looked unremarkable. Neighbors saw a private, withdrawn man renovating his home. They did not see the hidden chamber below the garage floor. In the first months, Natascha was kept almost entirely underground. She later described extreme isolation, strict control, deprivation, and physical and psychological abuse. This story does not need graphic detail to explain what that meant. She was a child whose captor controlled light, food, sound, movement, and every connection to the outside world. But he did not control her identity as completely as he wanted. Natascha tried to preserve a private inner life. She read when she could. She listened to the radio and was sometimes allowed to watch television. Information became a way to measure a world that continued without her. Time itself became part of the struggle. Birthdays passed. School years she should have experienced outside came and went. The child shown on missing posters was gradually becoming someone the public would no longer recognize on the street. Yet remembering her name, her past, and the existence of a life beyond the property prevented the hidden room from becoming the whole world. Above ground, her missing person photograph remained familiar across Austria. Search teams followed leads, questioned suspects, and investigated theories. Yet the most important lead had already been set aside. There was even a second warning. Days after police first spoke with Priklopil, a police dog handler reportedly contacted investigators and directed suspicion toward him. Because Priklopil had already been checked, the information did not trigger the decisive search that might have uncovered the truth. The failure was not that no one ever found his name. The failure was that finding his name was mistaken for eliminating him. Years passed. Natascha became a teenager inside a system of coercion designed to make escape seem impossible. Over time, Priklopil allowed her into other parts of the house and sometimes outside under his supervision. These moments did not mean she was free. He used threats and psychological control to convince her that running would bring terrible consequences. To outsiders who occasionally saw her, there was no obvious alarm. That later fueled cruel speculation about why she had not escaped sooner. But captivity is not measured only by walls. A person held from childhood can be controlled through fear, dependency, surveillance, and the belief that every exit is a trap. Natascha later made clear that she thought about escape repeatedly. She watched for an opportunity she could survive, not merely an opportunity to run. Meanwhile, investigators continued searching elsewhere. In 2004, authorities explored a possible connection to French serial offender Michel Fourniret. Search operations examined new locations. None led to Strashoff. The white van, the early interview, and the overlooked warning remained buried in the case file. Then came August 23, 2006. Priklopil had Natascha clean a vehicle in the garden. She was using a vacuum when his mobile phone rang. Because of the noise, he walked several meters away to take the call. The moment was small. No dramatic rescue team waited beyond the fence. No officer had discovered the hidden door. There was simply a distracted captor, an open route, and a decision that could not be reversed. Natascha dropped the vacuum and ran through the gate. She moved through nearby gardens, searching for someone who would listen. A neighbor finally opened her window. For those few minutes, there was no guarantee that the call had distracted Priklopil long enough. She could not know whether he was following or whether the first person she approached would understand. She continued until she reached someone willing to contact police. The escape depended on speed, but also on making a stranger believe an almost unbelievable sentence. The young woman outside identified herself as Natascha Kampusch, the child Austria had been searching for since 1998. Police arrived and took her to safety. Relatives recognized her, and DNA testing removed any remaining doubt. The missing 10-year-old was now 18, and she had freed herself. Priklopil fled. That same evening, before police could arrest or question him, he died by suicide after stepping in front of a train. His death meant there would be no trial and no cross-examination explaining how he selected Natascha, prepared the hidden room, or avoided detection for so long. The absence of a trial left space for suspicion. The witness from 1998 had believed she saw two men near the van, and later investigations examined whether Priklopil had help. Here, confirmed evidence must be separated from theory. Natascha said Priklopil was the man who abducted and held her. Austrian investigators ultimately concluded that he most likely acted alone. Officials suggested the young witness may have seen him move from the back of the van toward the driver's seat, creating the impression of a second person. Reviews found no proven accomplice in the kidnapping or captivity. Questions about investigative mistakes were more concrete. Priklopil owned the type of van described by the witness. Police interviewed him weeks after the disappearance. Another warning pointed toward him. Yet officers did not discover the hidden chamber. Later reviews criticized missed opportunities and reopened parts of the investigation. Officials argued that the entrance was so carefully concealed it might have escaped even a search. But the central fact remained: police came close to the correct house while Natascha was inside it. Freedom did not end public pressure. Natascha faced intense media attention, invasive theories, and judgment over the ways she survived. Some observers tried to turn complicated trauma responses into evidence against her own account. That reaction exposed another form of control often placed on survivors: the expectation that they must behave in a way outsiders consider emotionally correct. If she appeared composed, people questioned her suffering. If she expressed complicated feelings about the man who controlled her childhood, those feelings were distorted into consent. Neither interpretation changed the central fact that she had been abducted at 10 and deprived of freedom for more than 8 years. She refused to let those interpretations define her. In 2010, she published her memoir, 3096 Days, describing the abduction, captivity, and the work of rebuilding a life afterward. She later continued writing and speaking publicly about survival, dignity, and the harm caused when victims are denied ownership of their own stories. The Natascha Kampusch case is often remembered because of the hidden room. But the most important part of the story is not the architecture of the prison. It is the patience and judgment required to survive it. For 3096 days, escape could fail for 1,000 reasons. On one afternoon, a phone rang, a man stepped away, and Natascha recognized that the balance had changed. She did not wait for someone else to rescue her. She ran toward the open gate. For another case in which a missing child was found alive inside a hidden underground room, watch our documentary about Katie Beers next.